Hi, my name is Brice O'Connell, and I'm a senior strategist and regional team lead at Crimson Education. I've been working with students in admissions consulting for over 7 years now, and my students have gained admission to schools such as MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, UChicago, Duke, and more. And I'd love to share some of what I've learned and distill it down into this class for you. Welcome to Cracking the Common App, a deep dive into the application. Today we'll be covering Common App overview. We'll be talking about all the different elements of the application. Second, we'll be evaluating academic achievement. We'll go through what you want your transcript to look like and other ways to make sure that you stand out academically. Part 3 will be maximizing extracurricular impact. We'll dive deep into all the different ways that your activities can help you stand out. Part 4 will be all about crafting compelling personal statements and supplemental essays. Part 5 will be diving deep into a case study. Let's dive in with Part 1, the Common App overview. So as you may or may not know, the Common App has many different parts, but each one is just as important as all of the others. It starts with your biographical information, a little bit about you, your family, where you come from. This is all really important to admissions officers because it provides them with context. Everything in this process takes place within your context because it's all about you, and no two people share the exact same set of characteristics that make up their background. And depending on your background and your characteristics and your family and the school that you go to, it can change the way that your profile is reviewed. Nothing is in a vacuum. So that first part, not a lot you can do to change it, right? That part you'll just want to be honest, let them know exactly who you are and all the different elements about where you come from. Then you move into the academics portion. We'll dive a little bit deeper into this later. School information, your GPA, of course, your school rank, your class rank if you have one. It also includes an awards section. So we'll dive deep into that when we get to the evaluating extracurricular impact section, but it is an essential part of your application and it really can make a difference choosing those top 5 awards. The other elements include the activity list. The activity list, again, is really demonstrating who you are, what you've done, and how you spend your time outside of the classroom. Another big portion is going to be the personal statement, all about you and who you are. And again, we'll talk a bit more about that later. And then there's the additional information section, which is kind of like the secret weapon of the Common App. There are no rules necessarily for what should go in there, but there are definitely some guidelines I would recommend following so that it can be used to your advantage and certainly not left blank. All of this comes together and it basically determines your fate. So you want to make sure that you put a lot of time and effort and thought into each of these pieces. And we'll be digging into each of them a little bit more as this class goes on. But the first thing I'd like to cover are the deadlines. So definitely it's never too early to start working on all of this because it takes quite a bit of time to put it all together, to put your energy and your whole self, your personality and your achievements all onto paper. So the final deadline, what it all comes down to is November 1st for a lot of schools. That's that early deadline. So I want to kind of take you through what the early deadline means and what it can do for you, and maybe some strategies for how to approach this early deadline. The actual deadline, November 1st or so, depends on the school. So what you're going to want to do is research all of the schools that you're considering and really double check those key dates. The earliest of the early deadlines is usually about October 15th, and the latest is a little bit after November 1st, maybe December 1st, depending on the schools and the deadlines you're looking into. But these early deadlines are one of the best ways you can maximize your chances at some of these highly competitive schools. There is generally 2 different options. There are 2 options, early action and early decision. And the difference between them is crucial. So early action is non-binding. Basically, you're saying, I'm ready to apply, I'm excited about this university, it's my top choice school, and I want to get my results faster. I would recommend using this deadline only if you're actually ready. But applying early action allows you to have a smaller applicant pool. most often. It also allows you to really demonstrate your interest in a specific school. It's a really big way to take off the workload that you'll be experiencing through that first semester of your senior year. You've got classes and all of the other things going on, essays to write and all of that. So you want to make sure to get at least one of these applications out of the way early. So early action, everything is ready, you're submitting it, but it's not binding. And binding means that if you're accepted, you have to go, right? You've committed, you've said yes, you've decided. That's where early decision comes in. So early decision, same deadline generally as early action, but that one is binding. You're ready, your application is perfect, you've edited it, it is ready to go, and you've decided. If you get accepted to this school for early decision, that's where you're gonna go. It is an obligation. So that is the biggest difference between early action and early decision is whether they're binding. But definitely what you want to make sure to do is have all of your materials ready for at least one of these deadlines. There is some strategy in what school to apply to, whether you should go early action or early decision, and you need to be very careful with how you approach this. One big recommendation I would make is to do both, right? You can't do both with every school. Not every school allows you to apply to another school, so you have to be careful with the policies. Specifically with early decision and restrictive early action. Those are two that you really need to be careful with, and I'll explain what each of those are. So restrictive early action is essentially saying, I'm applying to this school early, it's still early action, it's non-binding, you don't have to go if you're accepted, but the school says you cannot apply to other universities early as well. That's where you need to be very careful. If you're applying restrictive early action to a school, that's your one shot. And that's where the strategy comes into play. Do you want to shoot your shot for this one school and only this one school? Or do you want to maybe spread it out a little bit? Pick a couple of other schools that allow you to apply early action. The same goes for early decision. If you're saying, you know, if I apply here, I will go here once accepted, that's a big decision to make, right? And a lot of times those universities do not allow you to apply early action elsewhere. So you have to be careful. You have to really look into the policies. There's one loophole though. Well, it's not really a loophole. They make it very clear and they're very open about this. But what a lot of schools will do, especially top private schools, if you apply restrictive early action or even early decision, you can apply early action to a public school. So what a lot of students like to do is apply to, let's say, Stanford, for example. You can apply restrictive early action to Stanford, and then you can apply to a public school early action. And one really great public school with a lot of STEM offerings as well is Georgia Tech. So you could apply to both of them early action, and that's perfectly fine. You could apply to MIT early action. Their early action policy is wide open. They don't mind if you apply to another school early action or not. So that's one way to really maximize your chances, is by picking policies that are compatible with each other. But those are the important things to keep in mind when you are putting your application together. Really shooting for that November 1st-ish deadline, looking at the policies and spreading out the competitiveness of each of them. It might be best, in some cases, to not go for the most competitive dream school in the early round. You could apply to a number of targets and safeties, all with early action policies. That would be a really great way of securing your target or safety schools before you go into the more stressful regular decision round. Alternatively, some students like to go for their most competitive school, their highest reach school in that early decision round, because that is essentially their best chance of getting into one of those top schools. So certainly do your school research, get your application put together as well as you possibly can, and shoot for the deadline that makes the most sense to you. And what's really great about the Crimson process is we help you put together a school list, and we help you target those deadlines that are best for you so that you know that you're maximizing your chances with all of the decisions that you're making. Part 2, we'll be diving deep into the academics portion of the Common App, but if you'd like to learn more about how to put together that school list and which deadlines you should pursue, and really just putting together the Common App, click one of the links below to talk to one of our academic advisors and get started. I'll see you next time.